everyone. I'm Superfizz from the eStaker community, and we are here with our friend Luis today. Hi, Luis. And so I'm a little bit out of the loop, but what I think we're going to do today is demo a Kintsugi merge testnet installation. Is that correct? And
that's
so,
correct, yep.
Yes. I'm going to remain mostly silent, but I think that Remy and Luis are going to lead the show. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe I could share my own computer here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My first job is to make everyone co-host and then shut up.
There you go. So let me try to share this screen.
Hey, Luis, can you tell us a little bit how you ended up with us today?
Yeah, it was super random. I was just lurking on Twitter and I saw that Remy posted a tweet asking for people to do a write-up on how to run a node on Kintsugi, ideally with a minority client. And this is something that is an interest area of mine. I've been running testnet nodes for a while with Rocket Pool and just like random nodes and trying out different clients just because I think it's fun. And I've just finished a Solidity bootcamp course, DAP camp, and I've been wanting to try my hand at learning in public and contributing back in the form of technical writing. And also this is something I learned by writing and teaching. So it was a good opportunity for me to kind of shore up and solidify some of my knowledge and contribute back in a way that I can. It's something I feel like I'm good at. So that's why I decided to help out and respond to Remy with this post.
So awesome. Amazing. I want to make sure that you and everyone else knows. eStaker is planning a, what are we calling it? A collaboration with CLR Fund. And it's probably going to go live at the end of February. And we're going to have a lot of grants matching available. And so this is really one of the kind of projects that I imagine coming out of that. And so for the people watching, that's really who I want to talk to. Like, if you can write something like this, if you can present information in a consumable way, you do not have to be anyone, like you don't have to be a developer. If you can just share information with people, then you're the kind of person we're looking for in this grant. So keep your eyes open. I think right now we're looking at maybe the last week of February, but you'll learn more. And that's it for me for a while.
All right, why don't we go ahead and start on your guide? Can you tell us, like, how did you come up with the guide? Like, what was your process to get there? What did you try before? What was your idea behind it?
Yeah, so my first foray into running nodes on Ethereum was by following the Summer Asat guides. So I was inspired by his style of writing, of making it, I feel like he strikes a good balance between being technical and not like hiding things from you, abstracting things away, but also making it accessible and readable, even for people who don't necessarily have a tech background. So I kind of tried to walk that balance of not always doing the easy thing, but also trying to explain things in line a little bit. And I also wanted to spend a little bit of time before jumping into all of the nitty-gritty technical details about, like, why would you even do this in the first place? Like, what does this help? Why does this help anyone? What's the value to you? What's the value to the community? So the first like 2 sections are about just like setting the stage of why you would even bother to do this. Like, what's the value? So yeah, that's my intro.
And can you just do a summary of why we should bother with this?
Yeah, so the merge is happening soon. The Kintsugi testnet is available for anyone to participate in. All the major clients have branches or main branch distributions of their client that work with that testnet. There's a really great website for testing the merge. I don't have the link on hand, but it's linked to in this blog post that has a good outline of all the major client configurations and so forth. And now is the time to proactively find issues. So the testnet is a really great opportunity for us all to try this all out beforehand, before the real merge happens. So any kind of issue that we can find ahead of time will be super valuable, because it'll prevent a bad thing from happening on mainnet. And also it's a good opportunity to learn. So if you want to just see what it's like running a node, if you want to just further solidify your understanding of how Ethereum works, this is a really great opportunity as well, to get familiar with things like the execution clients and consensus clients. I know it's really helped me with my own understanding, just seeing it and like playing with it and being able to query against the endpoint URLs and such. So it's an opportunity for you to learn, and it's also an opportunity for you to contribute to the community by testing, giving feedback on the experience, on any issues you find. I know I ended up filing 2 bugs when I was writing up this guide. So, and I wasn't expecting to find any issues or anything. They're not major issues, but yeah, it just goes to show that anyone can help contribute. So yeah, that's the goal with this article.
That's awesome. Like, yeah, I remember seeing you and a bunch of chatters about those bugs, and I was like, that's so great. That's so great. You can find, like anyone can find a bug and like report them and help the testing the merge actually. All right, so let's say we want to get started here. Let me get to the good stuff here. Acquiring hardware, installing and configuring the prerequisite software. I believe most of this will go through. I already have this machine here that we can use, so we'll start with this. This is like a clean install of Ubuntu, and we can simply go ahead maybe with installing the software. You talk about open ports, which are very good and very nice, and like if you have actually a real machine that you expect to run in the long term, that's a good idea. I don't believe this machine will have open ports, but it should work even without it. And so let's get started, I believe, with creating the Linux user. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go and create some of these users. As usual, if you're calling the sudo command, you'll have to enter your password if you're on Ubuntu. So that's what I'm doing here. So in here you're talking about like creating those data directories, right? And then you specify that you mounted a special folders with your SSD, right?
Yeah. So for my machine, I was testing on an Azure VM. So I created a disk and mounted it at /data drive. But if you're following along at home, that path may be different. So anywhere that you see /data drive, just update it to whatever path you decided to use.
Yeah. So I'm not mounting any special drive on my machine here, but I'll still create the same directory using this command here, which should be fine. And maybe it'll make it easier for me to just use the same directory, right? And we'll do the proper permissions for those directories and those new users. Now we'll install Java. Why do you have to install Java here?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way I set up this article was so that you actually clone the source code and build it locally. And the reason I wanted to promote the Besu and Teku combination of clients is because I personally feel like they're underrated. I was initially scared of them because they're marketed as like for institutional clients, but that doesn't mean they're not exclusively for that scenario. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to use them because they're built by the same team and they're built with the same software. So they're both built with Java. So I think it's cool that you can install one language and compile them both from source in the same way. Kind of like how you can do that with Geth and Prism. They're both with Go. So these are both the Java. You can think whatever you want about Java, but it's used and relied upon by businesses all over the world. It's institutional grade, it's commercial grade, it's anyone grade. So yeah, that's why I went this route with my path of having people actually install Java, clone the source, and build it locally.
That's some very good points there. And maybe you could tell a little more about Besu and Teku. Both of those clients are like actually minority clients right now, right? And there's a good reason why you might want to use a minority client. It actually promotes the health of the network, and it prevents a bunch of cases where there might be like bugs in the clients and a large part of the network being moved away because of a majority of clients are running major clients, right? so yeah, maybe Fizz, you could talk about that a little more.
Dude, you said client diversity. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that eSticker is doing this and that Luis is helping us with it. I have generally tended toward Geth, and we really need to be willing to shift that focus a little bit to other clients like Besu and Nethermind. But this client diversity improves the robustness of the network. It means that any fault in one of multiple clients will not bring the entire network down. One of my favorite things to talk about for this, and I'm just going to be 2 seconds. People say, well, I don't want to say Bitcoin. It's too late. I said it. Now, Bitcoin only has one client. Why does Ethereum need multiple clients? And the reason is more about like the protocol style development that Ethereum goes through. Bitcoin has one core client, and it only has to answer to itself. Ethereum is developed more as a protocol, a set of rules for communicating between clients. It means that it's much more interoperable and much better documented. Because of that design approach, multiple clients need to be able to speak together to make sure that they all follow the spec and that the spec is actually developed correctly. So we really think of this as a strength, even though at this exact moment, we feel like client diversity is stressing us out. In the big picture, it's really a very valuable strength of Ethereum.
Well
and
said.
Rant. Sorry. I think I did that to Colfax the other day too, sorry.
I was going to warn 2 seconds for Superfizz is like 10 minutes, but he always says good things though.
Wait, I was quick, right? I mean, we're still
That was
compiling.
quick. No, that was quick and concise. I love it. And very valuable. You're so right.
I have to acknowledge, I have really only stolen the stage one time, and it was at your call. Well, you and Remy. So I don't always do it, right?
You've gotten much better. No, I appreciate it. And the reason, yeah, you're just very passionate about things and want to share good information. So I felt that was like a very good overview. Thanks for sharing.
Well, hey, I have sort of been doing this by myself, but I also want to involve eStaker in this February 7th thing, where some folks, OX Invis and Michael Sproul, have combined 2 really important data sets to help us realize that 3 centralized exchanges are primarily responsible for this client diversity issue. And February 7th, they're going to publish their site. And again, I have to be honest, I said February 7th. They didn't. That's sort of my date, but I think it's going to work out. Then we'd like to really draw attention to it and sort of engage the machine that is the Ethereum community and really encourage these exchanges to get on the right track.
That's going to be exciting.
See, Remy, that's what you get for saying, did you have something, Superfizz?
I love it because we're still compiling, and it explains much better than what I could do it myself. This guide we're doing right now is for Kintsugi, right? And Louis,
Yes.
are you aware of the lifespan of Kintsugi?
Only a little bit. I have secondhand information. So I follow the ETH2.news blog by Ben Edgington.
Yep.
And that's kind of my primary source of information for ETH2 news. I know that in his most recent post, he mentioned that Kintsugi is supposed to be a short-lived testnet. And so I think last I heard, it's supposed to be living for like a couple more weeks, maybe. And then there'll be 2 weeks there. He's saying two weeks. So yeah, good to know. So yeah, 2 weeks, but I think there's supposed to be another one after this one. And that one is supposed to be the final testnet before the merge. So
they say that every time.
Yeah,
they're all the final testnet.
Well, eventually one will be, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I haven't done this yet, but if you follow this guide, when the new network comes out, the new testnet, you should be able to tweak some parameters, turn off the clients, and then restart them after reconfiguring them. And maybe you'll have to nuke or delete the data directory and resync the chain. But a lot of this should be reusable. And I'm planning to update this article or make a second article that has updated information when that happens.
That's awesome. That's what I was getting at here. Like the last news that we got about Kintsugi was that it might get dropped down in next week or two, and then the next major merge testnet, which is supposed to be called Kiln, I believe, it might start after that. So keep an eyes open for updates to those guides from Lewis and all of those guys being thrown around. If you can update yours, I'll try to update mine too, and hopefully people will be able to get up to speed on the next merge testnet.
You're about to create a service, but oh yes, the service copy paste worked well. That's very impressive. I want to. This is important. Ben Edgington and I recorded a walkthrough of his January 28th What's New in ETH2 today, and it's on YouTube on the ETHStaker channel. We're going to try and do that at least until the merge, so they might be worth checking out.
Awesome. So here I just pasted this service definition file. There's two things that you'll have to replace, at least two things here. The first one is the data path. I've been using the same one as Lewis in his guide here, which is this one here, /data drive /Besu. So that's what I've written here. And my home directory, I believe, is home/Remy. So that should be fine here. So let me just press Control X to save and then enter to confirm the file name. And I believe that should be it. Let me just confirm here the directory for my home.
You cloned, sorry to interrupt, Remy, but you cloned the testnet repository in that directory, right?
Did I? I believe I did. Let me only just confirm here. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Testnet.
Merge testnets. Cool.
Yeah. So now we'll do as usual when we create new systemd services, which is to call this daemon reload command and then the start command for the service. And then we'll make sure that the service is actually running, which seems to be fine, right? You can see here the active, which stays in green, which should confirm it. Let's enable service to make sure it starts on reboot. And then let's check out the log, the live log messages to see if there's any main issue. Like right now, we don't see any, like most of those messages are info messages, nothing major, it seems. So we will assume that the service is running properly. Right. So now let's go and install Teku. Like Besu, we'll have to clone the repository and then compile it. Which brings me to maybe talking with Torsten about his fdocker project. I know fdocker has recently added support for Kintsugi, and I don't know if you have support for installing Besu. And
I do. In fact, I do. So the way that fdocker works, it's a one from column A, one from column B kind of tool.
Yep.
So it currently supports all consensus and execution clients that support Kintsugi, which is all of them with the exception of Aragon. So any of those combinations can be installed. Some of those combinations don't work, but that's not because of fdocker, that's because they don't work.
Yeah.
That's a known issue.
Awesome. And maybe that could be another tech video that we could do there with fdocker, seeing if we could install some minority clients and see if they work in any of those combos there.
Yeah, maybe that's a Kintsugi v2 or Kiln discussion.
Very eager to see some fdocker demos here.
Me too. Super excited.
Did we have any demo of fdocker previously? on ETH Staker?
We have not done that. However, the Besu team has decided to actually use the Docker tool for their demo.
Nice.
Yeah, Thorsten and I have talked about it, and I kept leading him on. We just never got to it. And then we started the Monday series, and we're like, we're going to do ETH Docker, but then something keeps coming up. So maybe next week.
Yeah.
If nothing comes up.
So the Besu guys were really, really, really gracious and generous, and took some time to make Docker work on Mac OS. That's 100% of the Besu team. I don't
Yeah.
have a Mac, but they do. And so now it works there, which is awesome. I'm really happy about that.
I saw that recently. I'm glad they did. It's a great improvement for the tooling environment.
Yeah, it didn't actually take that much. You know, macOS is a BSD under the hood, or a BSD-like, kind of like BSD, not enough like BSD. Drives graybeards crazy. But that aside, yeah, I mean, it's basically a Unix alike. So it's not surprising that it can be made to work relatively easily.
We commit to ETH Docker next week. Is that in scope?
Sounds good to me. If you're up for it.
And if I would wait long enough, someone would say, sure. Awesome.
Did you come up with any issue while you wrote this guide, Louis?
Yeah, I did. So I was about to say, I also want to shout out the Besu team for being super helpful. I did run into an issue with Besu. So the command, if you scroll up real quick while we're compiling,
Yep.
you go back to the Besu section. If you go to the git checkout command, you'll see there's a -b merge. So that means that we're checking out their source code with their merge branch, and then automatically pulling the latest commit from that branch. And I found that when following the instructions, that Besu was just crashing on launch. And so I filed an issue, and they were very quick to help me figure it out and come up with a workaround. And then there was a second issue with the consensus, or sorry, when Besu was trying to sync to the tip of the chain. My instance was thinking it was done syncing, but it was very far behind what the block explorer was saying for the block height. So I popped into Discord and mentioned that I was having an issue, and Suburban Dad hopped on and helped me figure it out. It was actually an issue with we think it was an issue that they are already tracking, are aware of, but they helped me come up with a workaround, which is basically delete the data directory and start over. And they gave me their list of boot nodes, which I updated in this drive and this write-up. So hopefully when you all run this, you won't run into this issue that I did.
That's very great. And maybe that's something that's like people are not aware of, or like people are not expecting. Like if you have any issues, you can actually talk to the people who are developing those softwares, and they can help you out, right? I've been having many different conversations on Lighthouse Discord, for instance, or on Get Discords, and people are very friendly. And if you ask them, they will gladly help you.
Just found out today that Suburban Dad was working with Besu now. That's a super catch. He's a really, really helpful and knowledgeable guy. So I'm very happy about that. This, for anyone who doesn't know, way back in the day, Geth actually had a fault, and a minority client, then Parity, kept the network running while Geth repaired itself. And that's kind of an illustration of what we can do here. Not enough people run minority execution layer clients, but if you choose to run Besu, you may have the opportunity to support the network if something goes wrong with Geth. So it really is a wise choice.
And I just finished installing or configuring the Teku service here. And as you can see, it's staying active and it's running properly. So let's enable it and check out the log for any like major issue, just like what we did with Besu here. All right, so I'm looking at the logs here. I don't see anything special. Maybe it's not like fully started yet. Yeah, there you see it's in sync mode right now. And like what should we look for next? Like I believe we're mostly done, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The last step is just to wait and see how the block sync goes. Wait till it's done and make sure there's no issues. I do have some instructions here in the guide for what you can do. Like, how do you know? I think it's pretty easy to get lost as a first timer doing this. I know I was
Absolutely,
lost.
yeah.
Like, how do I know when it's done syncing? It's not like it's gonna like text me when it's done. So I have some instructions here on how you can run that curl command. And what that'll do is that'll ask Besu, hey, what's the current block height that you're aware of? And it should be pretty low. And then we should be able to check that against the block explorer and see our progress that way.
So let's try it. I don't have curl, so let me install that quickly.
And while that's installing, I can talk about what this is doing under the hood. So
Go ahead.
you don't have to go back to the config, but if you remember the Besu service config, the systemd file, there's a flag in there, RPC HTTP API and RPC HTTP enabled. That just tells Besu like, hey, we want to use the RPC HTTP API. So that RPC stands for remote procedural command or something like that. It's a web service, so the Besu client is now able to accept requests from us. So our curl command is us asking Besu to do something and tell us some information. So yeah, so you can see that it's running. It looks like it's giving us 0x0, and that result value is a hexadecimal value. So for those who aren't aware, it's just a different way of representing numbers. It's base 16 instead of base 10. So if you have a calculator app, you can, I mean, you don't need to compute 0x0 because we know that's 0, but
Yeah.
when it does start syncing, you'll get things like B1 or like A16F or whatever. So what I use is a calculator app I use a Mac, but I know Windows also has a programmer mode where you can just paste in the hexadecimal value and it'll give you the base 10 value. Yeah, it looks like Ubuntu has that too, so that's cool. But yeah, so when it's done syncing, the value that you see should match the value that you see in the block explorer, which there's a link to in the section below.
I'm not familiar with this programming mode calculator here, but if you want to try it and see for yourself, that's a pretty good way to find out the actual block number where your client is actually at for Besu here, right? So that's a good way to check out if you're in sync. And for the Teku client, you got another curl command here, right?
Oh, actually, this one's still Besu. So I noticed there was a second RPC HTTP API that they support. You can see that the method is ETH syncing.
Yeah.
And this one's a more straightforward, like yes or no, is it done syncing or not? So that's just another command you can run, still for Besu.
All right. And yeah, this is the one for Teku where you're telling the users to check out the logs.
Yep.
Exactly. So let's have a look at those logs quickly here. Seems like we're having a bunch of errors. Not sure what they are related to.
I think it might be related to Besu. So if you go
Yeah.
back to the other terminal, I was seeing an issue, like maybe this is the same issue I ran into, or maybe it's something else. I don't know. This is why we're testing the merge.
Yeah.
The Besu client looks like it was on block 0 and not progressing from there.
Yep.
So I wonder if there's some issue in the logs.
So this is the Besu log here. So maybe there's an issue with my version of the Besu client or the Teku client. But in any case here, I'm seeing a bunch of info message I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I think that these engine fork choice updated logs. I think this from what Suburban Dad was telling me. I think this is Teku. So what's happening under the hood? We have two clients running in two different systemd processes, and Teku is asking Besu. So our consensus layer is asking our execution layer for stuff.
Yep.
And I think this is what these consensus fork choice messages are showing us. It's doing it repeatedly, so it seems like there might be something wrong here, possibly with Besu. Could you check what the latest block number is if you run that?
So let me check with that curl command here again. I'm still at 0.
Yeah, so that seems like there's something wrong with Besu there, and it kind of makes sense that Teku is also having an issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys want to do this. I'm not familiar how to live debug Besu or Teku.
Yeah, I don't think we will do any live debugging here, but that was a good run of installing Besu and Teku either way.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do any live debugging. So a couple things about this. One, I'm not sure which build you're using here. There was a recent Besu build that changed how they run on Testnet on Kintsugi. And then secondly, bonsai trees are currently not supported on Kintsugi. I'm not sure whether you're using them. I'm assuming no. And then thirdly, these two clients here, Teku and Besu, they kind of rely on each other for the sync. So it's to some degree normal that you get some interesting messages while they're both syncing until they're both in sync with each other. So where in the current network, your execution client can sync completely independently of your consensus client, that is not the case once we're merged. The two need to work together to both get to full sync.
That's a very good point. And I've seen a recent update in the spec as well. So maybe like Besu has updated with the new spec, or Teku has updated with their new spec, and maybe there's some discrepancy there between those two clients. So who knows?
Hey, actually, I had an idea. Can you go to the Besu directory and just do cd Besu and then git log? I'm just curious to see if we're on totally different commits. I was on a commit when I tested from January 21st.
Yeah, so I'm on a commit from January 30th.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just post the commit hash so that I'm on. Maybe we can just give it a try real quick to see if that works.
Yeah.
So I just messaged you the commit hash on Discord. So just do git checkout and then that commit hash.
And
And then
we'll have
you'll need to restart, or I guess you'll need to, yes, first stop Besu, and then
Yep.
we'll delete that data dir and then try again.
and we'll have to recompile, right?
Right, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Some would say Fizz should talk for 10 minutes.
So there's a couple of things we can talk about. One thing we might talk about is block production. So anybody know the diversity kind of that we have now in Ethereum? Which clients actually produce blocks on Ethereum mainnet?
I believe it's almost 100% GEF, right?
It is 100% Geth. That's right. Besu
Only
and Nethermind, 100%. So Besu and Nethermind do not have a portion of the block production on mainnet, and both teams are quite keen to get a slice of that with merge. So they now have a really good opportunity to get in there and not let that be kind of ossified at 100% Geth again, which was
That's interesting.
Go ahead.
I haven't made it obviously my mission is client diversity when I say that I'm generally referring to consensus layer clients, but I wasn't really aware that 100% of proposals are Geth. So that makes me feel convicted. I wanted to focus my scope on I can handle consensus layer, but that's a real tragedy.
Yeah, the good news though is that so when you think about the staking outfits right now, the big guys, right? every change, of course, is a big deal for them. Everything has to be QA'd, run through full testing first.
You're
At the
talking about
same
like in terms of infrastructure, right?
infrastructure, yes. Now, when you're talking though about the execution client, because it does so little as far as the chain is concerned, the beacon chain is concerned right now, it's critical, but it doesn't get used for like a year for a single validator, right? Once you have thousands, it gets used all the time, and it can be load balanced, and it doesn't actually have validator keys. That means you can take your Geth, you could put a Besu in there, you could a Nethermind in there, and then load balance across them, and it will work just fine. And come merge, you'll have to rejigger your entire infrastructure anyway, right? And no client keys need to be moved, etc. It's a lot less scary than changing the execution client. Sorry, the consensus client, and if you're also changing the validator client. Now, a lot of these guys actually use remote signers. So for them, if they can find a consensus client that supports that remote signer, they don't even need to move the keys, right? So that makes it even easier. All I'm saying is every infrastructure change is a big lift for those guys, but it doesn't cause a slashing if you change like Geth to Besu or Nethermind, or bring that in.
That's some good point.
Good.
Yeah. Like
yeah.
Before the merge, it's pretty easy for those big services to add additional execution clients and like load balance across all of them.
Right. Past merge is a little different. There are some efforts underway to have a way to submit blocks for execution to multiple execution clients. But right now, like in this testnet, it's meant to be a one-to-one interaction, which also means that, say you sync this Besu Teku here, and then you're like, Teku is great, but let's try Besu Lighthouse. You may have to resync both. In testing, it's not always successful because they sync with each other. It's not always successful to just replace one and replace it with another. I expect that'll get better as we get into further testnets, but that's where we are right now.
Good stuff.
Right.
So I recompiled Besu with commit hash you provided me, Lewis. It seems to be waiting to find peers. So maybe once it finds peers, it'll go well. But I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to tell us about. Maybe you could tell us a little more about you. Like, where can you find what you're working on? Maybe on Twitter or something.
Yeah. So I don't work in Web3. It's a passion of mine. It's a hobby interest at the moment. I like to do technical writing. I'm pretty new to publishing technical writing. This is actually my second article, but I'm planning to continue to do so. And I'm going to post them here on Hashnode, just because I needed a blogging site and I picked that one. And I'll be posting them on Twitter as well. So the next thing I'm working on is a guide for people who are building smart contracts, how to integrate ENS. I think that's an interesting problem. I was curious how that worked, so did some research, and I'm writing up a guide for how to resolve ENS names in your smart contract. So more of a technical audience for the Solidity devs, how to do things like store an ENS name and also an Ethereum address in a single data structure. Because otherwise it's kind of awkward having to maintain two separate data structures. But yeah, this is all stuff I do in my free time just for fun. And yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I will keep posting educational content for those with the technical background, but also trying to make it accessible to people who are just interested in learning more.
Awesome. We'll make sure to post the link to this guide and a link to your Twitter account as well.
Awesome, thanks. So just a quick note on the sync here. Yeah, I see that it's stuck on 0 peers. So for anyone following along at home, I wonder if it has to do with us not opening ports.
It might, right? Because there might not be enough like good peers on a network right now for us to be able to find those peers.
Yeah.
That's a really good point as well. Yes.
Yeah, because when I tested it, I was on just like an Azure VM, and the very first thing I did was open all the ports, and I was able to sync with the boot nodes that are in this guide in like 10-15 minutes. So if anyone's at home trying this, maybe try opening the ports first, and then try running it. Yeah.
Good point. All right, Fizz, do you have anything else you want to ask Lewis about or to say?
I love that someone who's so engaged in the community is just made themselves available. I'm glad that you came here to share with us. We're trying to do these videos every Monday, and while we do have a lot of ideas, if anyone else wants to reach out and say, hey, this is a great idea, I feel like we would jump on it immediately after we finish the ETH Docker one. So Luis, I'm really appreciative of you, and I'm glad that you're working in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you guys. Appreciate it. I actually, my interest in staking was from following Mapping Out ETH 2.0, the CoinDesk podcast. And I remember watching you on that, or listening to you in the car on that podcast. And that's kind of where I ended up on ETH Staker. And I kind of just been lurking there for a long time. So if there are other people like me, I mean, I'm totally just like a random person who responded to Remy's post and decided to write up an article. So yeah, hopefully other people are interested in taking that leap as well.
When we started, Fizz asked me like, how do you know this guy? And I said, he just replied to me on Twitter. So that's how it's worked.
That's how all of this starts, really. Like that's how we build webs and networks. I had seen your name a few times, but I didn't have a connection. So I'm happy this worked out. I learned a lot today, and if nothing else, I learned about your professional ability, which is exciting to me. So thanks.
Well, thanks to all of you. And once again, it was really nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Luis. This was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.